Hello and welcome to Building and Marketing, your first website courtesy of Buildapreneur, and I'm Spencer Meekum, and I'm so excited to teach this lesson because this is the lesson that started me on my path to being an entrepreneur. Once I realized how easy it was to build a site, a lot of things came into place from there, and from there I was able to build many successful sites, and so I'm so excited to teach this because this is my real passion. Okay, so we're going to show you a couple things in this lesson. In this first lesson, I'm going to teach you to build a good-looking website from absolutely nothing in a single day. You can see here 2 websites that were built using this template that I'm going to show you. Both of these were built in less than 24 hours. It took me months to learn how to do all this because I had to Google every question I had, and I kept making mistakes, and there were a lot of things I didn't even know that I didn't know, if that makes sense. But if you follow exactly what I do, you can save hours of research. You can have sites beautiful, just like these sites, up and running by the end of today. So what we're going to teach you to get you started, there are a few things that you need. This course is free, but a few things will cost a little bit of money. That's what you need to get a website up and running. If you were planning on getting your site completely up and running smoothly for free, you were mistaken. But don't worry, it'll probably be less than $100. Here's a quick overview of what we're going to teach you today. We're going to teach you to choose a domain name. We're going to talk about selecting a hosting provider, and I'm going to give some recommendations and some discounts for that. We're going to get you to install WordPress on your website. We're going to get you to install a theme on your website, and we're going to get your first web page live, up and running. And if you don't know what a lot of these mean, that's fine. We're going to talk about them real quick so you understand what we're talking about. So let's get started. All right. With domain names, if you look right here, that's the domain name. It's youtube.com. With us, it's buildapreneur.com. Everyone has a domain name, and we're going to help you select the best domain name for your business. A web host, we're going to help you get a web host, and that's essentially where all the files and pictures and things that your website is get stored. And so you can't store all that stuff on your computer. If you did that, then anytime your computer wasn't connected to the internet, you wouldn't have a website up. And so you need to store a website and all of its files somewhere else, and that's called a web host. And they're very cheap. Like I said up there, it'll be about $60 for a year of web hosting. The web host that we're going to recommend is Bluehost. You can see that in the description at the bottom. Bluehost is an incredible web host. They're incredibly cheap. I've used many web hosts, and when it comes to being a beginner and kind of being walked through the process of getting your website set up, Bluehost is the best there is at it. And that link in the bottom actually gives you half off for the first year of your web hosting, and so that's why it's $60. So go ahead and click that, and as long as you're ready to pay that web hosting fee, then we're good to go. All right, so once you get to Bluehost and you're ready to go, this is something like the page you should see. Obviously, they could change their page over time, but there will definitely be some kind of Get Started button. And as you can see there, we're going to get a pretty good discount for our first month. So let's go ahead and click that. And like we talked about, the first thing we're going to need to do is choose a domain name. But before that, we'll need to select a package. I always recommend just the cheap $3.95 package. You can always upgrade in the future if you'd like, but for most starters, the smallest package will do, and you can save a few bucks a month. Some of the big differences are if you want to add a bunch of websites to a single host. I don't necessarily recommend that. There's a little bit of limit in space, a little bit of limit in email space and email accounts that you can have. Obviously, all this will come further down the line, but you don't need to worry about it at this point. And so I would just get the $3.95 package, and we can go from there. Okay, and it's going to say, what's your domain? Obviously, at this point, you're not ready, and so this is where you need to think a little bit about all of the different options that you could do for a domain. And so as you probably will discover when you start typing things in, a lot of domains have already been taken, and it can be really frustrating. And so we'll use Buildapreneur as an example. I wanted a site that would help build up entrepreneurs, and so I think I tried Entrepreneur. Yeah, you can see there it's saying Entrepreneur Builder. Yeah, let's go for that. And we'll see what it says. It's going to say, no, that's not available. You're going to hit this a few times at least, but it will give you a bunch of options that are available. So you can see .net, .info, .co, .org. None of these are bad options if you really want that domain name. Some people will say that people kind of look down on those domains. Google doesn't necessarily look down on them, and most people honestly don't notice. But some people do say, oh, it's not a .com, I won't go there. So looking here, it's going to give us a bunch of options. I didn't like any of these. Allentrepreneur-builder.com. I think there's probably a My Entrepreneur Builder, The Entrepreneur Builder. It'll give you a bunch of different things. I think I didn't like any of those. So you can type in a few more, and you'll need to do the same thing. You'll need to type in, I think I did buildentrepreneur.com. Oh, so that one is available. This is the magic screen you're trying to get to. Once it says create your account, you know you're in the right place. I do not want buildentrepreneur.com. I do want Buildapreneur. So there it is. Create your account. It's available. I was really excited when I saw this. Buildapreneur. It says everything that I want it to say. I really want a site that helps entrepreneurs build themselves up and discover what entrepreneurial activities they have a passion for. Looks like it's already signed in with Google. I think I've already done this a few times. So I would click sign in with Google, but you can just enter the account information yourself. My name, business name. Now here's something very important, the package information. It's going to default at 36 months. I wouldn't buy a site for 36 months up front unless you are positive that this is the site you want and that you're going to succeed with this particular site. A lot of people lose passion after a year, so just go with the basic 12-month. It'll be a little bit more per month, but that's okay for most people. The things it offers: free, domain privacy protection. All this is this information that you enter here will become publicly available once you purchase your site. And so I usually just enter in fake information, and so that I don't have to deal with that, because you'll probably get calls from a bunch of different companies trying to sell you their services. And so I've found that it's easiest if I just ignore that and put in something totally random. So I'm actually going to change it. And say, no, I don't need $1. Domain privacy protection. Site Backup Pro. You can actually download some pretty good plugins and stuff once your site's up and running, and we'll teach you how to do that. And so I wouldn't worry about having your host back up your site. If you really are scared of your site getting hacked or something like that, or you have some really important information that will be on your site, you could do a Site Backup Pro. Site Lock Security, same thing. I usually ignore all of these up front. Down the road, if your site's doing well and problems could really significantly impact your income, then it's a great idea to have these. But when you just get your site up and running, there's no point in spending a lot of extra money on security and backups and things. So here it is. I always pay by PayPal. I'm a huge fan of PayPal. Okay, so it's going to send a confirmation email, and you're going to make sure that it's an email address that you actually have access to, because it will send a confirmation email, and you will need to click that to approve it before your site can actually go live. So I'm going to make a password. No, I'm not going to tell anyone what that password is, because I'm one of those people that uses the same password for pretty much everything they do. Maybe it's not going to let me do that. Let's try something else. There it is. Don't you love when they force you to make a password that you will know you will never remember? So from now on, anytime you log into your Bluehost account, this is what it's going to look like. This is your home page, and this is where you're going to have access to everything. If you're ever stuck or having problems and you search things on Google and it tells you to go into things like your cPanel or the backend or FTP, this is where all of that will be. And you probably won't need to deal with most of this, but as you get farther along, you will understand a lot of this, and you may have to make adjustments with this. We're only going to use a few things up front. The first thing is what's called WordPress. And so you'll scroll down to where it says website, and you can see WordPress right here. So what WordPress is, it's a content management system. And so this means that as you're putting out blog posts and putting out new pages for your site, you're not going to have to recode them from scratch every single time. WordPress basically will put a template out there, and you can do the same thing over and over and over again. And that's why you see these sites that can put out tons of content every single day, because their website is built on WordPress, or it's built on some content management system, and it does the same thing over and over. So you're going to want to get WordPress installed on the back end of your site. It's totally free, and your hosting provider Bluehost will do it for you. That's part of the reason we love Bluehost so much. Installing WordPress can be fairly complicated, but Bluehost will do everything for you. So let's let it do that. It's going to take you to this Mojo Marketplace. It's going to probably try to sell you something and some service where someone will do this for you or help you out getting your website set up. This video will explain everything. Don't go through any of those services. And there it is, website progress, 25%. Okay, select your domain. You don't have to have the www dot. I like to have the www dot. It will automatically redirect, so when someone types in just buildapreneur.com or www.buildapreneur.com or any variation of that, it will still go to buildapreneur.com. So we're going to click that. Okay, your install is ready to go. All right, so you're going to want to type in your site name or site title. For me, it's Buildapreneur. For you, it'll probably be something else, and you can just type it in there. You can change this later on as well. Buildapreneur. Admin username. I'm going to type in Spencer because that is my name. Admin email address. This is where you would want to put in an email address that you use fairly often. This is where it will send notifications and alerts and anything that's important for you. I'm going to force it to do a password that I actually know. Okay, you're going to want to click these. If this is your first site, you won't have to worry about them anyway. It's going to see, there it is. Let a pro do it for you. You don't need a pro to do it for you. You can figure it out. One item to note, this can take a little while to install WordPress. It's putting a lot of files on your website and doing a lot of things and getting a lot of things set up. So don't worry if this takes 5 or 10 minutes. Just sit there patiently. You can go wander off or do whatever you want at this point. It'll let you know when it's done. So it's going to try to give you some next steps. Those next steps actually cost much more than they need to. We're going to show you some much better ways to go about it and save some money. A lot of these themes and plugins that they offer are much more expensive than they need to be. So let's go here. This is where you're going to log into your site from now on to do any kind of site edits. So we talked a little earlier about your host. Your host and your site are different. So you can log into your host and make some changes, but most of the time you're going to be building your site in the back end of your site, which will be your site name /WP admin. Okay. So you should have set up a username and email. It probably told you that right before you clicked there. So my email was this, and my password was this. You can click remember me. WordPress seems to forget a lot more than it should. All right, so once you go into the back end of your website, this is what you should see. And the way you always get here, remember, is your website name /WP-admin. And then you'll be able to log in, and it'll always take you to this page. And this, you'll become very familiar with this page and all of these different things right here. And we're going to explain all of those as we go. But the first thing we need is a theme. And what a theme is it essentially eliminates a lot of the coding for you. And so think of a theme as kind of a general format for your site. And so you'll set a color scheme, you'll kind of set a general layout for your menu, basically an essence for your site. And then the theme that I show you is also going to come with something called Visual Composer, which will make it very easy for you to build pages that look exactly like you want them to look. So what you'll want to do is click the link at the bottom of the video, and that link will take you to the theme that we recommend and that we're going to be using in this course. All right, so like I said, the theme that we're going to recommend is called Salient-Responsive Multi-Purpose Theme. I have used many themes. This is by far my favorite. It's a great deal, $49, and it will have all the code you need to have your website up and running in 24 hours. There's almost no good themes out there available for less than this. So you'll have to buy the theme. You'll probably have to set up an account. I wouldn't extend support. We'll be able to support you on this end, and you can also purchase support later on if you're having issues with this theme. But I can tell you right now, I have had very, very few issues with this theme, and I've used it on many websites. All right, so you'll want to sign up. I'm going to sign in, but you'll sign up. All right. And so once you've fulfilled your purchase, they're going to send you an email with a link, or you can also just go straight to themeforest.net/downloads and log in. And it will show you all the stuff that you've purchased, all the themes or plugins or anything else that you've purchased. And there you can see Salient. So you're going to want to click download, and it's going to give you options. You want only the installable WordPress files. It's going to make it very easy if you just get the installable WordPress files. So you'll want to download that. And you can see here, they're going to offer to install and set it up for $50. I promise it is not that hard. We'll have it set up in 5 minutes max. Okay, it's done downloading, so we'll go back to our website and get our theme uploaded and get everything set up. So you'll want to go back to your website, back to this admin panel here, and now is how we're going to upload the theme. And so we're going to go to Appearance, Themes. Like I said, this is very easy. You just follow it step by step, and it's not that hard. It works the same every single time. These are going to be ads and things up here for different plugins, different themes. Sometimes I actually use them, so I usually try to actually let it advertise to me. Your site's going to come with what's called a 2017 theme, and it's kind of just the basic WordPress theme. So we're going to add a new theme. We're going to add the theme we just purchased. And right here, we want to upload our own theme. It's going to say, do you have a zip format? And we do. We downloaded it in exactly the WordPress file format that we need. And so that's great. We just need to choose the file. There it is. Theme Forest. Click Install now. All right. So the theme has been successfully installed. We can do a live preview if you kind of want to see what your site looks like. Nothing is up yet, so it doesn't look like much. We're ready to activate our theme. So it's there, but it's not actually showing anything yet because we need to activate it. And this is what we'll do with anything that we upload to our site. Okay, and then this theme, you remember I talked about how it comes with Visual Composer, and that's what's going to make it very easy for us to build individual pages exactly like we want them to look. And so it says you need those plugins, and they come with the theme for free. So you'll just click Begin Installing Plugins. And again, some of this might be a little different as WordPress does updates and things like that, but the base concept should always be the exact same. So this is our plugin install page. It says you need Salient Visual Composer, you need Contact Form 7, and you need WooCommerce. You don't actually need these two, and like you can see here, they're recommended, but you do need Visual Composer. So we'll click Install there. Plugin installed successfully. Let's return. Once again, activate. Everything that you install on your site will just sit there and do nothing until you activate it. And there, it's gone. It's been installed. So your site is up. You have WordPress. You have your theme all ready to go. Your site is ready to start building. And this is the most exciting part. Obviously, a lot of that is incredibly boring. That stuff took me a long time to actually learn and figure out because there's nothing definitive out there that talks you through every step. So you're there. You're ready. It's time to build a page to our website. All right, well, before we get started building our first page, we need to understand a few of these things right here. We need to understand posts, we need to understand pages, and we need to understand plugins. Once we understand those three things, we can move on. And so posts and pages are very similar. A post is something that it's categorized and you can sort it by date. You can think of a post as like a blog post, and on a blog, you see new posts and content coming out every day. People share it, people comment on it. It's very timely. A page is something that is static and it does not change. It doesn't have a timestamp, it doesn't have a date, it stays the same for a long period of time. For example, your home page or your about page or a page that you build that will never change. That will be a page. And I'm going to use a quick example on one of my websites to show you. All right, so this is a website called Beginning Stock Trader. This is the home page. You can see it here. It will never change. It might change a little bit, but you can come back in a week or two, a month, and it'll look pretty much just like this. Here is a place where I put all of my posts, and this is my blog. And if you see the blog here, you can see all these different posts, and it's sorted so that you can see the most recent ones first. And this page will constantly change. We'll see different blog posts every week as new stuff comes out. And if you look at a blog post, it looks different. It's got a sidebar here where we have ads running, and we have different things that show recent posts. You can see at the bottom there's commenting. So this is a much more timely, categorized tool, whereas the page is a very specific page that you want to look a very specific way, and so you'll build out the page. And you don't want people commenting on it. You don't want people doing anything on the page or sharing it a million times. You just want people to be able to use that page for information. All right, and the last thing to explain is plugins, and you can see those down here. We'll look at that real quick. And what a plugin is it's essentially a small piece of code that someone else writes that you can install in your site to do any number of things. And so, for example, let's say you wanted to have a contact form on your site where people could get on and contact you. Well, you don't want to have to know how to code a contact form. There are millions of other people that know how to do that. And so they'll create plugins, and you can just download their plugin, and it'll insert straight into your site. And so your site is actually going to come with some plugins when you build it in there. You can see, I think, 7 plugins and their descriptions right here. As you can see, there's a contact form one. We installed one so that we could do the visual composer. But there's plugins for everything. If you want to be able to put your social media icons on your website, there's a plugin for that. If you want to have a good discussion board on your website, there's a plugin for that. And so chances are you will never have to learn to code because you can always find a plugin that does what you want. All right, now that we know the difference between a post and a page, we can start building our home page. And to get our home page started, we actually need to do one more step. The reason is your home page will actually default to look something like this, where you can see your most recent posts. And we want our home page to look the same and to build it to look exactly like we want. So in your WordPress menu here, we're going to go to Appearance, and we're going to go to Customize. It's going to give you a few options here. You won't use this very much, but you'll go to Static Front Page, and there it is. It's set to display your latest posts. We want a static page. Currently, there aren't any pages, so we're going to add one. Let's just call this page Home. Add that. And for our post page, this is going to be our blog where we want our posts to show up. Let's make a page called Blog. You can call this News or anything else you want. Add that. And you're going to see it updating here. And then when you click Save and Publish, you'll now have a home page and you'll have a blog. And once it shows saved here, you can go back out to your WordPress menu. The last thing we need to do before we build our home page is we need to set the site-wide settings. And so we need to tell the browser all the different settings we want for our site. We want to tell it what fonts we want, what our color scheme is going to be, how we want individual pages and posts on our blog to look. So let's go to General Settings. All right, and once you're in your General Settings, it's going to give you all these different options right here. And a lot of these you're going to be able to figure out as time goes on. There's tons of different options that you can do. The important ones are probably your colors and your fonts. And so you want to choose a color scheme in your accent colors. This will be what color, like buttons and things like that. It's your accent color, right? Anything will be that color that you select as an accent. And then there's other colors you can choose. You'll just insert your whole color scheme for your site right here. And then anytime you build anything, it will just ask which color you want that to be. Typography is also a big one. You can change your navigation font. So this is going to be the font in your menu. You can choose the drop-down font. You can choose your heading of any page font, your heading subtitle font. And this is all stuff in the top of a page. If you see here, it's going to give you other options. General HTML elements is where you're going to change most of your fonts. So as you can see, it's got body font, heading 1, heading 2, and I believe it should go all the way up to 5 or 6, so all the way up to heading 6. What that means is when you're writing a page or writing a post, sometimes you're going to want to have a large font, let's say, at the beginning of the post, some kind of title or a section header. And so you're going to identify all of these, and then when you're actually writing your post, you can just say, give me the default heading 1. So let's say heading 1 is what you always put at the top of your page. So we'll make that pretty big here. Let's make it a 100 pixel. That's how big that would be. Maybe that's a little big, so let's go 80. We want all of our heading 1 to be 80. For our heading 1 font, we always want it to be some kind of Cambria, let's say. You can change all that here. Heading 2, let's say, is where you divide specific subsections of your website. So you want it to be a little smaller, maybe 60, but you still want it to stand out. Maybe you want all of that to be capitalized or something like that. All your options here. And then your main body will be whenever you're just typing away kind of your main paragraphs, what do you want that to look like? And you don't have to mess with any of these because they're going to default to something pretty normal. But eventually you'll want to choose some good fonts that go across the site. You know, maybe you really love this Lucida console Monaco. Maybe you're a big fan of Helvetica. I don't know who is, but maybe you are. So you can test all those out and just choose your site-wide fonts, and then you're not going to have to code in fonts on every single page. It just defaults and your whole site looks good and uniform. And as you can see, there's tons of other settings. There's settings for your header of your site, for the footer. Your footer is the thing that appears in the bottom of the website. It's got social icons usually and kind of some site-wide links. You can have a blog. You're going to have a blog, and you're probably going to want to have settings. If you want a contact page, this is where you'll help build that. As you can see, tons of options that'll kind of create this general template for what you want your entire site to look like. And then as we build each page, it'll be really easy because the browser already knows what your site should look like. So now we're ready to start building our home page. So that's exciting. Let's go to Pages here. And you can always see any page on your entire site through this link right here, All Pages, and it'll give you a full list of the pages on your site. Right now we just have a blog, a home page, and a sample page that it came with. You can hover over it and you can get your options. You won't do much quick editing. We'll edit it and we'll view it. We'll probably be the main ones. So let's edit our home page. And the first thing you need to know about pages, and this is true for posts as well, is attributes over here. And so, as you can see over here, there's templates and there's parents. And so if you see in some sites, you'll go up here like this and there's a slash, let's go to Learning Center, /Learning Center. Now within this Learning Center, there's free lessons, so /written lessons. And so /written lessons is a child to Learning Center. So if you go here, I have the parent being Learning Center, and that means it's a subfolder of Learning Center. You won't have to worry too much about that because you probably won't be doing many subfolders. The second thing is a template. So it comes with a bunch of different templates. The ones that you'll probably want to worry about are sidebar. So this is where, for example, in these posts that we were showing you, there's a sidebar here, and it's showing different things in the sidebar. So that's a sidebar, and as you can see, it's got a sidebar left, or a regular sidebar, which is a sidebar right. There's a bunch of other options, but the only other one that you would need to worry about is the default template, which is what most of these will be, and that's just a blank slate that we can work with, and it's awesome when we have Visual Composer because we can do whatever we want with it. The other thing you need to know is this button right here. When you first open up a new page or a new post, it'll be set to what's called Classic Mode, where you can just start coding right here. And when we click Page Builder, suddenly we have this option where we can start building it using Visual Composer, which is much easier to use, and it will do all the coding for you. The one thing we're going to need to know how to do is to mess with elements, and we'll explain elements and how to use Visual Composer next. All right, and so to get started, we need to understand the most basic element, and that is a row. And so we're going to start by explaining what a row is. We're going to use this example site, Beginning Stock Trader. And so what a row is it's an element that goes all the way from the left part of the screen all the way to the right side of the screen. And so this section right here is one row. This section right here is another row. This section is another row. Here's another row. And so they're basically sections of your website. And as you can see, some rows will have a background picture. Some will just have a background color. You can do tons of different things depending on your row. So we're going to build our first row here. It's going to give you a ton of options. Let's just type it in so we don't have to search through them. Okay, so it inserted a row, and now it's going to start being all visual for you. You can see this is one row. It's going from here all the way to here. That is one row. Now to edit any setting on the row, you're always going to be able to do it right here. And so let's click on this and see what kind of settings we can play with. The first thing is the type of row. It's got in container, full width background, full width content. So we'll go back to our example. An in container row means that the row doesn't stretch all the way to the edge of the browser. It would end right about here. So a good example of this is this row right here. This is in a container. As you can see, the stuff inside the row doesn't actually stretch to the edge of the screen on both sides. Otherwise, this YouTube video would be way over here, and this text would be way over here. And so it's in a container, which means it's got a little bit of padding on both sides. The other one, full width background, means there's padding, but the background is full width. So here's a great example of that. The background is full width. We see this picture going from end to end, but the middle here has padding and is in that container, so it doesn't go all the way to the edges. And then the last option is full width content, which means the background and the content inside of the row will all stretch to the edges of the row. We usually go with full width background. The next thing is equal height. And that's a pretty simple one for now. We'll just click that and we'll explain it later on as we get into columns and things like that. Here we add a background image. Let's go ahead and do that. You'll select files, or you can just drag them there. So I've already chosen an image here. It's right here. And it's going to upload your image. And it says you want this background image. And you will say set that image. So that is now your background. Now it's super important that you understand that you still have to set settings inside the row. It's not going to automatically make the row the size of that picture. It's going to make the row the size of whatever is inside of the row, the content. This is just a background image. All right, so this option is pretty obvious. Do you want to hide the background image on mobile view? Yes or no. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. You'll figure that out as you go. The background position means if you look here, when people are resizing their browser like this, do you want it to stay the top left corner to always stay the same, or do you want it to base it off the center, the top right, the middle? There's a bunch of options there you can see. I usually do center top. And this says, if you stretch your browser so far that it goes past the picture, do you want us to start repeating the background or just stop? Parallax background, you can click around and play with that. It's just a cool thing you can do with your background. Background color, this is if you don't choose an image and you just want the background to be a set white or a gray or some kind of other color. You can select that color here. This is back to that parallax. If you want to do video background, we'll talk about that later on. And then this says, what is the text color you want in your row? Do you want it to be dark, which would mean your row is probably light, or do you want it to be light, which would mean your row is probably dark as far as the background color? What's the default text alignment? And that most people are pretty familiar with that. Now, padding is something that you'll become very familiar with as you're building your site. It can be kind of confusing, but it doesn't have to be. So let's go look right here to use an example of padding. We're going to use this row starting right here. And so let's say on this row, we made our background with this image right here. Well, the default would be for this browser to put this piece of content right here at the top of that row, because the browser always tries to put things in the top and on the left. And so you need some way to tell it, I want a little bit of room here. And that's what padding is. Padding tells it how much room you want in between the top, and then padding bottom is how much room you want on the bottom, between the top of the row and the content that'll go in the row. And so that's padding. We're going to go here, and we're going to say we want our padding, let's say right now, to be 200. And this is measuring it in pixels, and so that's why it's so much. 200 pixels is probably about 1/8 of your screen. We'll say padding bottom, 200. So that means with your content, you want that much room on the top and that much room on the bottom of whatever your content is. And we can talk more about the rest of these if we want later on. For now, we'll save. And then another cool thing about WordPress is you can preview what you've just built. So we'll click preview, and there it is. And honestly, it's not much right now. You can't even really see the picture because most of it is down here. And that's because I've given it 200 pixels of padding on top. So that's about to there. And then 200 pixels of padding on the bottom. That's about to there. Now the content would go right in here in the middle, but we don't have any content. So all it is 200 pixels of padding on top, 200 pixels of padding on the bottom, and then your row's over. Let's go make a few minor adjustments and we'll be able to see what kind of stuff we can do. One of the most important things that you're going to need to know is to understand the difference between a column and a row. And so we're going to look here. This is the back end of this website, and it's been completely built so we can talk our way through it. Like we talked about, this right here is a row. The way you always identify what a row is right here in the top right of the section. You'll be able to see all these options, and that's where the row options will always be. So you can see right here is another section, but it doesn't have those options right there. So that's not a row. That's something that's still within this row. All the way until we get to here, we are still within one single row. New row starts right here. So within the row, there are columns, and that's the way we break the row into multiple pieces so we know where different things need to be. So for example, right here, we have a column that's 2/3 of the row, and then the other third of the row is this column right here. And that's the way we tell the browser where to put this stuff. In this row right here, the featured in row, we've broken that row into 6 separate columns. Each column is the same size, and each column has a picture in it like that. And that's the way we've done that. And so I'm going to use this row to kind of explain how columns work. So we're going to go down. We're just kind of scrolling past different things here, and there it is, the featured in row. So featured in, you can see the row here has all these settings. It says featured in, matches up there. And so the way that we know that what a column is we look at the top, and each column will have something like this at the top, and that identifies that this is a column within a row. And so when we first create a row, it's going to have one column that goes all the way across the row like this. And that's just one column in one row. But usually we'll want to split it up. And the way we'll do that is we'll do that right here. You can see it visualizes the options for you. So this says we're going to create 2 columns that are equal. We're going to create one column that's about 2/3 and then 1/3. And so follow that. That's what this one is, 2/3 and then 1/3. And you keep going across, 3 equal columns, 4 equal columns, all the way to 5 equal columns. And you can see that this one here is 6 equal columns. So if you want, you can customize it right here. So a column is essentially just a small row. You can change settings and everything on a column, but a column is just a small section of a row. In a column, you'll still be able to put text, you'll be able to put pictures, you'll be able to put logos, videos, anything else you want in a column. A column just identifies how far into the row that data will extend. So looking back at this right here, we have one column in the row, and that column, we don't care if it extends from all the way from the left to the right, because it just says featured in and we want it centered anyway. So that's featured in, and then we created another column within the row, and this one we did want to extend across, and we wanted it to be broken into different pictures, like that. So we did that, we created a custom, and we did 6. And then each column, and you can see it broke it each down. Now each column has its own settings at the top like this, and there's 6 of them. And there's single images in every single one of them. And so if I wanted to add something else to that column, you can see right there, plus, let's say I wanted to add some words. I could go back to that text block, add a text block, and then I could add some words that would show up right here underneath that image. Same thing here, same thing here. And the last thing we want to look at is this row right here, so we can explain that. So as you can see, we've got 2/3 and 1/3, and on the left we've inserted a video player, and in the right, we've inserted some text. Left, right, and all we've done is insert a link to this YouTube video right here, and we've entered the text right here. And you can see how it matches up perfectly. And this is going to make a lot more sense as we build the front page of Buildapreneur, but we just need you to understand those two concepts, that we're going to be using rows and columns within rows as we build this site out. All right, we can finally get started building our site. And so we're going to go back to our dashboard like we always do between lessons. If you're sitting on your dashboard right here, we can find our home page by going to Pages right here. Or we can just go to the Edit Your Front Page option. And I know it's been a while coming, but we can finally build the entire front page in about 20 minutes. Okay, and you remember we made an example row here, and so we're not going to use anything from that. I already have a few things ready. And so we're just going to start by creating a brand new row. We're going to call it a row. And it's always going to put new rows at the bottom. So if you're ever confused, new rows go at the bottom, but we actually want it at the top. And there it is. That's a brand new row. And so I've already selected some of the images and stuff that we're going to use in this row, and you can do all of that on your own. And so we'll get started. And we'll just talk our way through it as we go, and you can see the process that this works with. So let's edit the row. Let's get backgrounds and everything set up. And so I want my website to have a full width background. I want a nice, beautiful image that goes all the way from the left to the right. And then I want my text to be in the middle. And you see that on a lot of websites. So I want a full width background. I don't really care about equal height. I want a background image, and I've already made it. And it's going to be this one right here. And you don't have to do this, but I usually enter in what's called alt text, which basically tells Google what your image is about. So let's say this image is about entrepreneur discovery. We'll set that image. So that image is now my background. And it says, what position do you want? I probably want it to stay centered. You can see there's people there that probably will do best if they're always in the center and the center top. Okay. Parallax background is where your image stays the same and your text kind of scrolls over the image a little bit. So it's pretty cool. We'll go with it on this one. And there's no other settings that I think we care about, except for we want our text color of this row to be light. You can tell that was a dark image, so we want our text color to be our light option, which is white. And I want everything to be aligned in the center. Now, if you remember what padding is, it's going to default to this background image, and then any text we put in is going to default to the very top of the image. The background image just sits there in the background. It doesn't tell the browser how big you want this row to be. It just tells you what the background is. And so padding will help us establish the distance that we want between our text and the top of the browser. And so I'm going to say I probably want about 200, which is 200 pixels and about a fifth of the screen. And then I'm going to insert a text box, and the padding at the bottom of my row I want to be probably about 300. And this will probably have to change as you look at it. You'll probably tweak it a few times. So let's save that. There's our row. There's nothing in it right now. So let's add a text box here. There it is, a text block, and it's going to insert all that. And I want to delete that. And we're going to say Buildapreneur. And it's going to default the size of this text box to paragraph size, which is really small. We want it to be H1, which is basically the biggest. It's the main thing on the page. You'll only have one H1 per page, and it's the one big thing, the thing you want everyone to read. I want my H1 to be Buildapreneur. I want it to be centered. Let's save that. Now you can see we're still working in that same row. I want everything to be overlaid over that same background image right now. So in that same column that's in that row, I'm going to add another thing. Now this isn't going to be a text block, because if I add another text block right beneath that one, it's going to touch that one. We want space between our next set of words. So we're going to add what's called a divider. And let's say it's going to say how big you want the divider to be. You don't need it to be that big. You'll probably play around with this too. Let's shoot for 20. Okay, I've added a divider. Now I can add a text box or block. And now I'm going to say discover. let's say discover the entrepreneur, I can't even spell it, in you. Okay, and this will be H2, so it's kind of the next biggest thing, right? Only one H1, and then kind of the next biggest thing will be this. I would also want that to be centered. Okay, and then I'm going to want a button that says something like learn more, go somewhere else in the site and sign up for something. Now, I don't want the button to go right there. Once again, I want a divider. And actually, let's show an easier way to do that. You can actually copy things inside of a row. If you hover over it there, you see how it shows you the green? I'm going to hover over this, and this is a duplicate button. Now I have two dividers, and I can click right here. Watch my mouse, and I can drag it. You can see like that. I can drag it right below there. There's a divider. Okay, now a button. Right there, add a button. And you'll probably have to figure out which size works for you. Let's try large for now. You would add the link to the place on the site that you're going to do it. Right now we don't have that, so just leave it blank. And our text will be learn more. Okay, and it's going to default to your accent color that we picked earlier on. It's going to default to everything that you probably want it to default to anyway. So let's go with that. And then one more thing I want to do is in my column settings, the column meaning all of this stuff right here, I want centered alignment. Everything's going to be centered, and you'll see why here in a minute. So let's preview, see what we came up with here. Preview doesn't save anything. It gives you an opportunity to look at what you're doing and see if you like it. And there it is. Buildapreneur in big. There's my H2, Discover the Entrepreneur in You. There's a nice, beautiful looking button that's the color of my site. Eventually, I can go add the link that goes to. And there's our first row. It's done. For our next section, we want to be able to build something where we kind of show people what we do, what we're all about. And so a lot of times you'll see like a few little icons and little explanations about different parts of the site and different things that you can do with that website. And so we're going to do the same thing on ours. We're going to go and build a new row. And I'm actually going to delete this row. If you remember, we built that original row earlier in the lesson. It's nothing we needed. We were just trying to show a point. So you can delete a row very easily right there. Okay. So let's build our next row. So once again, I'm going to type in row up there. It's going to pull up my options. I now have a new row. So this is our first top bar row. This is the next row. We can always tell that it's a new row because of the right here. So let's set the settings for this row, and we'll keep going down. All right, now this row, the way I'm envisioning it, is a white background that goes all the way across the screen, and then 3 or 4 little logos that'll explain different things. But we don't want those to go all the way to the edge of the screen, or it'll probably look weird. So I'm going to go full width background, but not full width content. Here, I do want the content to be equal heights, meaning I'm going to have all of these multiple columns, and they're going to show different things, and I don't want them to be unequal heights, or it'll probably look strange. So we'll select that. It says, okay, well, what do you want to do with these short columns when you only put in a little bit of line of text? And we'll say, well, we want that to stay at the top. Okay, we don't want a background image for this entire row. I just want it to be white, so we're going to choose a background color. You can select here or type in right here. I'm going to say that, and that's white. Now we have it. And I think we're going to start with 3. So I'm going to break this into 3 columns. There we go, column 1, column 2, column 3. You can see that each column has separate settings that we can apply to it. For the most part, we're going to do the same thing though. We're going to want a little logo and then some text beneath it. And so a logo is just an image. I've already created the logos. You might have to do that on your own. So I'm going to go plus, and I'm going to type in image, IMAG. And obviously there's a bunch of image options here. Typically, when you're adding an image, you're just going to want the single image, but there are other options if you don't. So now it's going to ask you settings for the image. Oh, really? Okay, what kind of images do you want? Well, let's add an image. I'm going to drag. You can drag it in or you can upload it manually. The first thing I want to talk about is how you can discover the entrepreneur in you. I want you to know and discover things. So I built this little logo. You can use a website called Fiverr. There's a link on the bottom. Or a couple other websites if you don't want to or don't know how to build logos. You can pay $5 and someone can do them for you. It's very easy. I always enter the alt text here, just so Google knows. So discover entrepreneur, something like that, just so they know what's going on. That's our image. And we want it to be in the center of the column that it's going to be sitting in. So remember, we're doing column things right now. It says, do you want any animation? Do you want it to fade in, or do you want it to do anything like this? I hate it when websites do that, so I always say none. Go ahead and select something if you think it'll help. And then there's a bunch of other options if you want shadows and things like that that are pretty simple. So we'll say yes. We've got our single image, and then we're going to want some text beneath it. And it's going to enter in its default text. I'm not going to go type it all out in front of you, but I'd say something like discover different kinds of ways that you can be an entrepreneur, etc., from there. So let's say we'll save the changes there. We've got our first column. And actually, remember, we're probably going to want a divider in between those, because otherwise they're going to be touching. That's how close they'll be naturally, because there's nothing that tells the web browser that needs to happen. So I'm going to enter divider. I'm going to put in 10. Now you can see the divider's beneath it. So as we talked about earlier, I can click and just drag my divider right there. There it is. I have an image, I have a divider, and I have my text. And there it is. Now I'm going to go do it for the other three really quickly as well. All right, we're all good to go. Let's preview it and see what we end up with here. And there's our preview. There's the stuff we already built. Scroll down and, oh, looks like we made a mistake. Remember, we have to have padding, and so it's going to naturally sit right up against there unless we add padding. And so we're going to want to add a little padding on top and a little padding on bottom for the entire row so that everything sits a little far off there. So let's go back here. Remember, this is our row settings. We want the entire row to have padding. We'll scroll down to the bottom there. Padding top, let's say 125. Might have to play with this. Let's try previewing that one more time and see what we get. Much better. So it's starting to look like a real site, right? We've got a beautiful intro with a call to action here. We've got 3 different things that we talk about on the site. This is going to say something about discover, probably here. And I'll probably add a couple other things here and here. Maybe a button for each of these to take them to different sections of the site. But you can see how it's starting to come together. And so I'll probably tweak those in a few minutes here, and we can move on to the next row. We're going to build our third and probably final row for this preview. Once you have the idea, you can continue to do tons of different things with your pages. We have other courses that talk more about Visual Composer and how to use it more, and how to build your menu and things like that. But you have a pretty good idea now how to build this first single page. So I'm going to show you here. I'm going to build one more row. Start a new row. And this time I don't want it to be even. I kind of want to have a big image on one side, and then I want to have some text on the other side. And you've probably seen stuff like this. And I actually think I'm going to go a row that looks like this. So a half and a half. An image on one half, and then I want some text on the other half. So let's go like that. Let's start with the image over here. Something like this. And once again, I've already selected the, oh, I clicked the wrong thing there. Once again, I've already selected my image, so you'll have to go and do this for whatever works best for your website. So add image. Now I'm going to add, I want to add a section that talks about tools and how it's going to provide tools for entrepreneurs. So tools for entrepreneur. Oh, it's a hard one to type. And I want something like that to sit on the, probably the center of the column, right? So this is in the column, and I want it to be in the center of that column. I don't want any animation. And then I probably would want a big text block on the other half of this column where I'm going to say, so first I want kind of a big piece of text that'll say something like, entrepreneurial tools. And that'll be H2, remember. So H1 is just the main one thing on the page, and then H2 is there anything else that we want big and bold. So we're going to go entrepreneur tools. I'll click enter, and it'll automatically go to paragraph after that. let's just say I typed a bunch of stuff. This is all about tools and discovering great, I don't want to do that. Discovering great tools that help entrepreneurs, blah, 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 blah. So let's pretend I typed a big description about all these tools that we can provide and all the connections that we can help make. Let's save that change there. This is probably going to look weird. Let's add the column padding to our row like we always forget to do. Once again, I like full width background. Background color of this one will be white as well. We might change that as we go on. Whoops. Let's add our padding. Padding top, 125 again. Padding bottom, 125 again. Okay, and that should be good on that row. And actually, I do want an equal height for my columns again. This time I want it in the middle. So the reason for this is I want the text that's going to be on the left side and the image to be on the right side. I want them both to kind of line up a little bit. And so I want the text to be in the middle of the image. So I want the columns to be the same height, and I want everything to line up in the middle. Let's see how this looks. A lot of times you'll preview it and it won't even look like you imagined it looking. And it'll take a couple minutes to play with it. So let's see if that's the case. Looking good, looking good. And that's exactly what I imagined it looking like. So that's awesome. So we'll have to change. We'll probably add more text to this. Maybe make a color, separate color for our H2s. Probably add a little divider right here so we can kind of divide these sections so it makes sense in people's mind. But as you can see, beautiful image that I selected. I actually purchased this image. It cost me about 75 cents. Not that hard. I bought it on a website called 123rf.com. And as you can see, it's a beautiful image. It kind of gives that point across that we have tools that are available on multiple devices. And then I'll obviously fill out this content a little more. And it looks really legitimate right now, right? And this has taken us less than an hour. Beautiful front. Beautiful place that can divide people into different places and help them understand what we do. A whole section on entrepreneurial tools. And it's a beautiful home page. And we'll probably add a little bit more in the bottom later on as we go. And as time goes on, we tweak the home page. And as we add different things, we'll continue to do so. But as you can see, it's not that hard to build a home page. I'm going to show you one more thing before we finish out here. If you right-click on a page, so I'm right-clicking, it gives you those options, and you click Inspect. And by the way, this is only in Chrome that this is available. There's other ways to do it in other browsers, but I'm teaching you using Chrome. It's going to give you all these different options. You can basically see the code of the page. This is the actual handwritten code of this page that Visual Composer is doing. We can talk more about that in later lessons. What I'm going to show you is this button right here. You see how it looks kind of like a big screen and a small screen? What that is you can see exactly what your website looks like in other formats, such as a mobile phone or a tablet. There it is. I'm clicking on it, and it's giving me all these options. Here's an iPad. So let's kind of look at an iPad here. As you can see, it looks great. So it's resizing. You remember these right here. We're supposed to go 3 across, but because they're all separate columns, Visual Composer knows that when you go into something small like this, it won't look good, and it needs to put them one after the other. So same thing here. It kind of separates these as well. And so the beautiful thing about these themes is they're responsive, meaning that no matter what device you put them on, they're probably going to look good. And you might have to make minor adjustments to make sure that that works, but you won't have to code a whole different site for a phone. Your website will automatically make that happen. It'll look good on every device that accesses your website. And so we've built our first simple home page. And I just kind of want to do a quick comparison so we can kind of remember everything that we were just taught. Let's go back here. I'm going to go back to the top. So we talked about rows. Each row can be noticed by looking at the top right corner, and you can tell that it's a new row because it'll give you options for that row in the top right corner. So our first row is this whole section right here, which can be seen as this section right here. So the row has padding on the top and the bottom, which is done in these sections. Then we have text blocks where we add text. We have a divider where we add dividing space between our text and our next text. This is our little subheading, another divider, and then we have a button that we added in the middle. There's a little more padding at the bottom done in the settings, and then we have a new row, this one divided into 3 columns using right here. We've added images, we've added dividers, we've added text to each one of those columns. We had a new row right here. And here we just added a divider and a little line so that we could separate sections. And then a new row again, right there. And in here, we had a large image on the right, and on the left, split right down the middle, we had some more text. We wanted some big text to kind of introduce it, a heading 2 or H2. And we had some small paragraph text beneath that. And then we finished with a call to action in a new row, which is a button, and where we invite them to do something. And that's a simple home page. It can be as long as you want it to be, but that's the way it's done. And people do this every day. You can build dozens of pages, and every one of them can be done just like this. They can be built exactly like you envision them. As you can see, there's tons of options we haven't gone over, and you can see in later lessons, we'll talk about every single one of these and talk about what they can do. You can add videos, you can add text with gradient, you can add testimonial sliders, pricing tables, carousels. If you want to show a team, if you're a little small company and you've got a few people that work there that you want to show, you can do that. If you want to learn to do a little code, you can add just raw code and you can learn to do that. Literally, the sky is the limit. You can do anything. It will take time to figure out all the options that you have in Visual Composer, but as you continue to learn, you will realize that there really is nothing that you can't build into a website using this Visual Composer. And so thanks for following this lesson. Make sure to subscribe and continue to watch these videos, and it'll be no time before you're an expert.